Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Wonders of August. If you're not, thank you so much for clicking on this video again and checking out the rest of my content. So today I have obviously a different video, and this is just one of the things that I wanted to implement in my channel because it is one of the things that I am an avid watcher and reader of. I will be doing my makeup in this video, but disclaimer, I am not like a Bailey Syrian, my makeup is not gonna be, I'm not an avid makeup wearer, so I'm just doing something light and natural because I just have a meeting like 2 hours after this, so I'm not gonna be doing anything like that spectacular. I'm also gonna be doing my hair, don't worry, I will be combing my hair afterwards. So no need to be alarmed with the state of my hair. I suggest you grab your beverage of choice. Mine currently is rooibos. I'm obsessed with the rooibos. Like, hits the spot every time. I'm also going to be starting a series called The Ghosts of, where I will be exploring more of the ghosts of the different towns in South Africa. So keep an eye out for that. I'm not sure if it's going to be out just yet or it's going to be this one. That's why it's important to just follow me on Instagram, where you can go through the little polls I have, and I kind of decide that way which video I'm dropping next. So with that being said, let's get into this video. Watch you a bit closer. I hope you can at least see what I'm trying to accomplish. So today we're talking about the infamous case of Gert Van Rooyen with his accomplice, allegedly his accomplice. What's her name? It's Joey. Well, it's Francina Joanna Joey as a nickname. Harhof. I'm not sure if it's Harhof or Harhof. But I think it's most likely Harhof. So I'm just gonna call her Joey, which was her nickname. Yeah, there's a lot of controversy around whether or not she was an accomplice, whether she knew what Gert was doing or not. But I'll give you my opinion on what I think about Joey at the end of the video. I don't want to be biased in the beginning. I'm just gonna let you guys first hear the story, make up your mind, and then tell me down in the comments, what do you think she was, victim or accomplice? So Gertie boy, also known as Cornelius, or was born rather as Cornelius Gert Van Rooyen, and he was often nicknamed by his friends as Bokkie. Boogie. So, Gerrit was born in the 15th of January, 1939. So it was quite a while ago. I feel disappointed as a South African that I did not know about this guy. It was a long time ago, so it makes sense why I wouldn't know him. But as someone who's an avid follower of true crime, yeah, it did make me feel some type of way, especially since this is a South African. It's like one of the most famous cold cases in South Africa. So, yeah. Gerrit was born in 1938, and he was first of all a delinquent growing up. So he used to steal, like petty theft. He used to steal car parts, and then he went to a reform school. Sorry, this is my piercing. He went to reform school after he was caught, and then he got out, and then he stole more car parts and clothes. Oddly enough, he was stealing stupid things like that at his age, I guess fairly normal for a young child to get in trouble. But anyway, but other than that, there's no other record of him doing anything too malicious at that age. Oopsie, I'm using the LA Girl concealer for my brows. Yeah, so besides that, there was really nothing much that he got in trouble for. But boy, oh boy, did things change fast for Bokkie. So things like the petty theft, they were taking place around 1954, so. But around 1979, that's when he just started doing the most. One of the most recorded things that he did was in 1974, he kidnapped 2 girls by the age of 10 and 13. 2 young girls. He took them somewhere isolated. He basically threatened them, and then he, violated them that way. intimately violated them. Or I don't want to say that word, but you get it. You get it. He was a pedo. He's a well-known serial killer and pedo. Literally, when you Google him, that's the first thing you see. Infamous pedo and killer, like serial killer. So yeah, that's what he did, and he let them go after he did what he did. Obviously, the girls reported it. Like, the hell, who he think he was? Did he really think he wouldn't get caught? But yeah, so obviously he got reported. Like, what the heck? And he was imprisoned. Now, this is the effed up part. This is the messed up part. He got in prison, right? But he only got 4 years. 4 years for what he did, guys. 4 years. This is, mind you, in the 80s. So he got 4 years and then he only served 3. That's the law for you. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much. So I don't usually draw my eyebrows because, as you can see, I have thick eyebrows. I don't need to like line them or anything. I just define them. Really, that's about it. Mind you, this Boki guy, this cutout guy, he was married while he was doing this to a woman named Aleta. So they don't tell us really a lot about Aleta. All we know is that they had 6 kids together. They had 6 kids together. In 1983, Aleta just requested a divorce. He was like, okay, this man, imagine, because people, as the wife, people gonna start looking at you crazy too. Like, dude, why are you staying with this creep? Because he is a convicted, criminal who's known for what he's known for. So they separated in 1983, and in 1988, that's when our Boki met Joey. I said I'm gonna call her by a nickname. I'm gonna call her Joey. So that's when he met Joey, and they just kicked it off. Loved it. Match made in hell. A few things to know about our Joey is that there isn't much to know about our Joey because Joey is so not well documented. It's crazy. The little bit of information that I managed to get for Joey is information that, what can I say? It's information that her friends had said in articles or in interviews, but it's nothing concrete like a Wikipedia page, which I don't understand. I'm guessing at the time of the murders, people weren't really looking at Joey because it was still up in the air, whether or not she was actually involved in the crimes. But still, she's an accomplice. She was his partner. She was said to be there for a lot of these things. So I don't know why they never really kept track record of her. And also, not to forget that this was in the 80s and women were still viewed as nurturing beings who can't really do any wrong. I think at that time there still wasn't much like convicted women serial killers and stuff because it was still like a foreign idea that women can actually commit such crimes, especially against kids. So, I guess I get that. But still, at this time and age, I feel like we should have something on Joey. But anyway, I digress. Other key things to note about Joey is that, okay, remember I said I didn't find a lot like a Wikipedia page for her, but I did manage to find an article where friends or people who knew her were talking about her character, because obviously people are questioning like, what's her character if she's hanging out with the likes of this guy? And people were often saying that Joey was like a level-headed woman. Like, she was beautiful, first of all. She could have gotten any man she wanted. So people were kind of confused when she came home with Bookie. They're like, what the hell? Like, maybe he rich? And people were saying that Joey was a very strong-willed person, like an independent, like, I don't need a man. I can do this on my own. Because after she got divorced, she raised her kids all by herself. And so they were surprised. She was not meek. What I'm trying to say. So they were surprised that when she got on with Gert, all of a sudden the Joey everyone knew wasn't the Joey they were seeing. She was meek. She'll never speak out of turn, like if Gert didn't really say like you could speak, or if he didn't approve of something, she wouldn't do it. So people are like, hold on, this ain't Joey, like we know her, like what happened to our friend? So I don't know if that can give you an idea that maybe she was abused, or I'm sure the guy was, you know, abusive, whether it was verbally, emotionally, or physically. Again, these are assumptions, not recorded actual happenings. I don't know if he was really abusive, but I mean, if you can commit some of the crimes he committed, and if people are saying there was a sudden character change for Joey, come on. Do you guys want to hear the kicker of how people described Gert? He was said to be flamboyant and a sexual deviant, but was God-fearing. Excuse you? Like, he was a deviant in that area. By deviant, I mean that he would often bring people in his house. I'll insert a picture of his house. It was nicknamed by the police force as the House of Horrors. And basically what had happened was he'd bring people into his house and he'd brag about how he was violating these kids in that way, and how he was attracted from kids from the age of 5. So in where he was a sexual deviant, but you know, he was a good Christian man. He was God-fearing man. These are the two okay, this one doesn't have a paper anymore. This is Revlon's, yeah, Color Stay. I think it's Color Stay. Revlon's Color Stay. Okay, do I know? I think this one is in cappuccino. I think I'm a cappuccino here. And then I also have the Maybelline Fit Me. So this one's a bit darker than this one, as you can see. That's because I mix and match. In winter, I usually use only this one. Summer, I mix with this one. I also mix with this one because this one it has a tendency of being gray. If you use this one, you know what I mean. Even though it oxidizes like after a while and becomes your skin tone, but still, I don't like that. Yeah, I mean, you can imagine he was also said to not pay his workers. Like, people were helping him around his house, which, by the way, neighbors described his house to be like a fortress. They were saying that it was covered. It was like, I'm guessing this is the 80s, right? This is the time where South Africa was relatively not high in crime. So people didn't really understand the reason why he'd have such high fences, and it was not a nice looking fence, it was a metal fence. Again, I'll insert the picture so you could see. Even to this day, I feel like people still look at you weird. Maybe not as much as that day, but still, it was a weird fortress type of place. And his neighbor said that he used to drive weird. He wouldn't park his car in front of the house. He would instead park it from the back in a garage, and then just immediately when he got there, he'd close it. You know, when you're in a fortress, like very guided house, I don't think you would immediately want to just start closing your garage, and you would leave it, right? Because you already have metal gates protecting your house. But anyway, neighbors thought it was weird. It was not me, it was neighbors. And what he'd do, oh, okay, first to the housekeeping, he wouldn't pay his housekeepers and stuff. His housekeeper actually said that he would refuse to pay her unless she brought him, quote, young girls from the township. Young girls from the township, then she would pay him. And he would, do this thing. I feel like it was just him taunting them. He'd like carry loads of cash at a time. And so, if you want to pay, just bring me young girls from the location and I'll pay you. Another weird thing he would do that neighbors just found absolutely weird was that he would stand, you see the gates of how the house is. He would stand, so their house was in front of a park, children's park, and he would kind of lean out like that and Bookie. He would lean out like that, and then he'd like, what's this? Catcall. He would catcall little girls who were playing in the playfield. Go, guys, I don't think you understand. Kids who go to Ipaka to play are relatively young kids, and he would shout how sexy they were. He would shout how sexy they were. He would stand there and catcall like he is some type of creep, and he would catcall them. So yeah, that's Gert. That's Gert in a nutshell. And let's get to the crimes that he is or was gonna be convicted of. It gets worse. You think it gets better? I know it gets worse. So the Van Rooyens, well, they weren't married, but I'm calling them the Van Rooyens. Well, what the Van Rooyens would do is that sometimes they would do this thing of going to local orphanages in Joburg. They would go to, like, in the area. They would go to local orphanages and they would basically try to, for a holiday. So they'll go there and be like, hey, for a holiday, we'd like to give one of the girls some type of a family situations just for the holidays, and then we'll bring her back. So the orphanages will be like, oh my God, these nice people, so nice of them. They are inviting, the girls, one of the girls to spend holiday in a family setting. Nice. So they took this 14-year-old girl, right, for the weekend, sometimes for holidays, where they'll travel around South Africa and go to these nice places, specifically Durban. They loved Durban. So they consequently took a 14-year-old over the Christmas holiday, and nothing was reported by the 14-year-old as being weird. But after they kind of took the 14-year-old for a holiday, for Christmas holiday, and they tried to put in an application to foster. So to foster is to have the child for long amounts of time until the child is adopted by a family, etc. And the application was turned down. It doesn't say why, because this was after the 14-year-old girl visited. So I'm guessing the 14-year-old girl maybe mentioned something weird happened there. After that, the application was turned down. And you could see that because this was a year before supposedly, the killing spree started. I've applied my makeup. I like it to have, like, I don't know if you can tell, but it has like a brownish hint because it's kind of my skin tone, so I like to mix it up and have that. So I'm just gonna like make it even and pat around. But we're also gonna talk about the first victim, who disappeared in 1st of August 1988. Her name was Tracy Lee Scott. Sorry, Tracy Lee Scott. And Tracy disappeared around Randburg. So Randburg is an area in Johannesburg, if you're not aware. And people who saw her, so she was making her way into the shopping mall. And before she actually went to the shopping mall, she had asked her brother, Mark, who I believe is her older brother, to please accompany her to the shopping mall like he usually does. And I guess this time around, Mark was like, no man, you can go on your own. You know most way it is. You don't need me to accompany you. So she went alone. I don't know if it was for the first time, but I guess it being like a normal thing for her to go alone. And she was seen by eyewitnesses to have climbed into a VW, a Beetle, near the shopping mall, and I guess someone was offering her a ride. And after that, she was never seen again. So a nationwide search was made for her because it's like, this is a 14-year-old and she just disappeared after climbing into a car, like some stranger danger, like a parent's worst nightmare. So the police had to really take it seriously because, like, oh, this is deep. In later reports, Brother Yake often spoke about, or Mark, her brother Mark, often spoke about how he was guilt-ridden for not actually accompanying his sister Yake to the mall like he usually does. Though, Mark is controversial himself. I don't know if it was anger issues leading up from a disappearance here, brother Yake, or it was just him being a crappy human. But he was found later in life guilty for killing a farm worker, beating them to death, and then feeding him to the lions. So, yeah. And so on the 22nd of December, that same year that Tracy disappeared. A girl named Fiona Harvey disappeared. And yeah, she was said, they didn't really say where she disappeared from, but according to people, she was picked up by a white, excuse me, white truck. And this truck was actually connected to Itrak because I don't know if I mentioned in the beginning of this thing that in later in life, Gert started a business with his brothers. It's a contracting business. That truck was the same truck used in his business with his brothers, a white Ford. So that's how he was connected to this. That's how they connected him to her disappearance. She's also never been found, no body. I think I mentioned Tracy. With Tracy's case too, she's still to this day hasn't been found. Her body still hasn't been found. Second disappearance is the 7th of June of 1989, so the next year, was a 12-year-old by the name of Joan Horn. She disappeared. Not much information on her disappearance was given. It's just that she disappeared. In July 1989, a 16-year-old called Janet Delport disappeared. She was also in a mall, and she was said to have been talking to a lady, a blonde lady, which she was said to be talking to a blonde lady, and she was later found and she was disorientated, but she was unharmed. I have a bit of a conspiracy theory with that, but I'll get to it later when I talk about conspiracies around what might have happened to the girls. Some weeks later, a 9-year-old also disappeared. Her name was Rosa Peel. I think that's how you say her name, Pyle or Peel. The 22nd of September, two girls disappeared. One was called Anne-Marie, and the second was called Odette. They disappeared at the same time, and I believe they were friends. So they disappeared at the same time. So several weeks later, a letter arrived from supposedly the girls where they said they ran away with some boys. So it went both to Anne-Marie's mom and Odette's mom. They never really believed it. They always thought something happened. And on the 3rd of November of 1989, a girl by the name of Yolanda Vessels disappeared. And the kicker is Yolanda was actually Joey's niece. So that's messed up. If it was in fact them, that's like hella messed up. And then the last reported, or rather the case that really brought attention to what they were doing, is the case of 16-year-old Joan Boyson. So the story of Joan Boyson is the one that's the most detailed because we actually know what happened to her. So Joan goes on to tell what happened when she was abducted. So she details that she was abducted by Gert and his accomplice, and she was kept in their home in a closet where she was drugged, handcuffed, and assaulted, like in that way, obviously, because he is a pervert. They don't really mention how long she was kept there by them for, but she actually managed to escape, and she ran straight to the police. She told them everything, and that's when the police decided, okay, obviously looking at this guy's past, this is something serious because he's done this before. And that's when the police started officially tracking the Van Rooyens. And people were like kind of weirded. Oh, this is the part where I mentioned, the 16-year-old they abducted first. So people were kind of like, but this is not the age range. I like how that's like natural. Like, this is not the age range that he usually goes for. So why would he kidnap a 16-year-old? But people were saying because Joan is so small in stature and she's also very short, they were like, yeah, definitely. I just show you the palette I'm using. This is the palette I'm using. It's the Jawbreaker one. He maybe mistook her for someone who's way younger because she looked way younger. If I find a picture, I'll try to include it here. Though the pictures that were given to the media are pictures, they were like school pictures, so you can't really tell how they look like. I think I'm gonna go for like a yellow. In this palette, it's called Wow. It's called Wow. Maybe it's not that subtle. Remember the 16-year-old I told you guys about in the beginning. So I feel like, remember how she was found and she was disorientated, but she was unharmed. But she was approached by a woman in a blonde wig, which they often said that Joey girl. Remember how I said Joey's not as innocent as she appears? Joey would often wear a blonde wig because I think she had brown hair naturally, but I think she dyed it blonde at some point in her life. But she used to wear a certain blonde wig. I think she's blonde, but she used to wear a certain blonde wig that she would use as a disguise, and she would kidnap these girls, right, or kind of lure them in. So the people were saying that the person who was talking to, that first 16-year-old I was telling you about, was wearing a blonde wig. And yeah, so they probably let her go because she wasn't the age range that, I don't know, Gert liked. And eventually, when they knew that the police were kind of tracking them, that's when Boki committed suicide murder. So what suicide murder is when the person or someone, okay, I'm not going to say someone specifically, but whatever, someone decides, whether it's a partner deciding to leave another partner, they decide, okay, you're not leaving me because if I can't have you, no one can have you. Or it's like a mercy killing, like what Adolf Hitler did to him and his wife and his kids. Basically, he killed them all off because he knew their fate was doomed. So basically, he killed Joey and he killed himself. He didn't kill any of the kids because the kids were old at this point. That was the end of the road for that case, because at that point the police were making the connection that this guy is responsible for these crimes. Now I know you're probably wondering, but how did they know that? Okay, it's not showing up clearly in the camera, but it's very like pigmented face to face, but not using a really high quality camera, so you might not see it, sorry. So I'm sure you're wondering how the police even made the connection that Gert was the one doing this. And for a lot of the murders, I don't want to say murderers because they still technically disappeared. So for a lot of the girls that disappeared, except one, which I think is Miss the Peel, I think stuff were found. Like for Odette, for example, there were phone numbers, her home phone number, her home keys, her prefect or class leader badge, or class captain badge were found. Things that belonged to the girls were found in his pocket. So people are like, hold on. If he has this in his hands, obviously that means that he knows where the girls were, because what in the world, right? And that makes sense. That makes sense. So for all the girls except for one, that there was hard evidence leading to the fact that he definitely is the person who might have known where they were in their last days. So yeah, you might be thinking, oh, his sons, two of his sons were actually arrested. One of them is the well-known one. His name is Flippe. I don't know how to say that. Flippe. This is the highlight I'm using. It's Hey Hello Halo by Wet n Wild. So Flippe was found and was charged with perjury because he lied to the police. I don't know how they found out, because I don't think at that time lie detector tests were that reliable, but they found out somehow that this man was lying to them about not knowing anything about the 6 girls that was linked to his dad, and that led him to be convicted for perjury, 2 counts of perjury, because he lied, I guess, under oath 2 times. And if you didn't know, that lying under oath, it's actually a huge crime. And on top of that, it wasn't really hard to find him because the man was already in jail for murdering. I think he was on a death sentence because he was found guilty of murdering a 15-year-old Zimbabwean girl. Yeah. Like, so the apple, it's looking like it's not falling far from the tree. And of course he's gonna lie if he's doing the same thing. That means he knows what Daddy Dearest is doing and Mommy Dearest is doing. So now we get to the different conspiracies now. And one of the conspiracies is that the girls are not dead. They're not passed. They haven't passed. Instead, they were trafficked because they believe that this man was actually part of a very powerful, like, child trafficking, not human, but child specifically trafficking ring that was very, 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 very powerful in Joburg at the time. And I believe this one, and I'm gonna tell you why I believe it towards the end of the video, because there's actually some type of proof that really solidifies this evidence. But yeah, people believe that, and people believe that that's why nobody's till this day, because nobody's happy. Also, remember Anne Marie and her friend, I think her friend name was Odette. Remember how they disappeared and then they said, oh, we ran away with boys, and their parents didn't believe that. They're said to have been spotted in Joburg actually at a clothing, like a, what do you call this? At a cloth store, a fabric store. She was sitting there. She was super, super scared, and they didn't understand. And then Anne Marie actually gave the man a letter, and in the letter, she had written that I'm Anne Marie. I've been missing. You know, I'm missing. My friend, which we can only assume is Odette, tried to call, but no one answered, and the call was cut. Help, basically. This man didn't help, because he only came out with it when I guess he was like, oh my gosh, is this that Anne Marie? And his Anne Marie's mom, or was it his dad or her dad, actually looked at the letter and they said that handwriting definitely was his daughter's. So that's why it's kind of solidified the fact that, okay, this is maybe Nyani Anne Marie. And this, I am very much for the human trafficking or child trafficking conspiracy, is because of this particular story. A woman in 2016 from England called in SAPS and I believe the Herald, but I think she called SAPS first, and you know, she told them that she has a story concerning Gert, and she says, you know, I had a run-in with Gert, but the police, she says, dismissed him. SAPS dismissed her and said, no, it's a cold case now. Kind of insinuating they didn't care, because it was until this this journalist saw that and is now trying to contact her. So he's still actively trying to contact her. He has ads out that if you are this woman who is from Red Hill, Durban, who is now living in England, and you said you had a run-in with Gert, please call me because I really want to know. This is her story. So I'm going to tell you her story and with her run-in. Nicole gave them pseudonames, so it's not actually their real names, and I'm going to call them by their pseudonames. So the lady's name was Mindy, and at that time she was 12 years old, and she said she was on her way back from a friend's house. She was going home to Red Hill, Durban, right? So she's saying she's walking home, and then that's when she bumps into a guy by the name of Tim. Now, she said she was very familiar of Tim. She was like, she knew Tim because Tim was in the plumbing business with her dad. So, you know, she's had run-ins with Tim, but Tim often made her feel very uncomfortable. So she tried to avoid Tim at all costs, and Tim being avoideki sana. So what had happened was, Tim was like, oh, hey, Mindy, let me give you a ride home, girl. And she's like, okay, Tim makes me uncomfortable, especially since one of her friends, who's also 12, told her that, you know, Tim kissed her and she knew it was wrong, right? So she's like, okay, this Tim guy makes me feel a bit uneasy, so I don't know how I feel about him giving me a ride, but I know him, you know, being a child, you're trusting. So she climbs in the car with Tim, and Tim is not driving home, but now Tim is taking turns that Mindy's not familiar with, and Mindy's like, okay, they're expecting me at home, you know, trying to put like urgency in the fact that people are waiting for her. She's like, people are expecting me at home, I need to go home. And Tim is like, relax, I'm only going to my house for like something, I'm gonna grab something. Which, if someone ever tells you that, I feel like I've read enough crazy things to know that is just, don't listen to that, you know. Be very hyper aware when someone says that. It's wrong. Then Tim does something. He puts his arm over her, ingati, like a seatbelt, like he's basically holding her down. By now, you better not jump out of this car. And this alarmed Mindy, like, oh gosh, what did I get myself into, right? So anyway, they get to his house. Tim is like, okay, walk inside with me. It'll only take a minute, and you know, blah blah blah. When they get to his house, he ulindilwe, like there are two older people in there, a man and a woman, a couching, and they have bags with them. And now Tim takes her upstairs and he says, okay, is gonna be here for some time. After he's gone, we can spend time together. And she's like, what in the world? I don't want to spend nothing with you, sir. So she's like panicking. She's upstairs, she's panicking, and she comes up with a plan quickly. She's like, okay, you know what? How about me and you? We go to a club. It's called The Crown. It was a pub. We go to the pub, we get a drink, we spend some time together, and until, eventually he leaves. This person seemed excited. Tim was excited. Oh my gosh, she's returning my feelings. She was 12, by the way, in case you missed it. They head over to The Crown, and outside the pub, she stands behind the pub and she's like, okay, you go in, you get our drinks because I can't enter. Because if I do, I'm underage. They're not going to sell me anything. So you just grab drinks. I'll wait for you outside. Now, only they knew that this club was situated in Red Hill, where her house is near. So she knew that if she could get there, she can make a run for it and she can book it and she'll be safe. So Tim, El Stupido, thank you for making him so daft. He goes inside. He's like, okay, I'll be right back. I'm gonna get our drinks. And he heads inside, and that's when she makes a run for it. She runs home, and when she gets when she gets a good distance, a white van stops her in her tracks, and someone grabs her from the van, and then she just remembers being let out by her home, because she was like, this is it, they really gonna like kill me. But surprisingly, the car makes a stop by her house and she was let out, and that's that. Uti, several weeks later, she found out that in fact the old man and the old woman who were in the living room with her and Tim were actually Gert and you know who. Gert and we do not know Mindy's real name. We do not know Tim. And Gert and Joey committed suicide. So yeah, those are the conspiracies, that he killed them, or that it's a whole human trafficking ring that took place. I know a lot of people think human trafficking, child trafficking, it's new things. It's not new things. The newest, latest update was in 2007 March, where what's the beach? It's a beach in Durban. It's called Umdloti, and it's the only time there were bones found there. And in that area, it's the area that Ugarte and Joey liked to holiday in. So people really thought that the bones would have been at least of one of the girls, but unfortunately not. It wasn't one of their bones. So the case is still cold, but almost every, I'd say 4 or 5 years, there's some type of a show. Like, I know Carte Blanche did like a segment. It's a cold case still, but it's still one of the most talked about cases. Except me, I feel so bad for not knowing about this case. But I thought it was important that this was my first true crime video, just to bring some sort of awareness, or just to talk about it so people don't forget about it, because you never know, these girls could still be out there somewhere alive. And yeah, that's the sad case of the very much infamous Gert Van Rooyen. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me again on this video. This is the makeup look I came up with. It's nothing, like, half of the time this is gonna be my makeup when I'm doing this video. It's very natural, but it's like soft glam. That's what it is. I love myself a soft glam look. Oh my god. So yeah, there you have it, guys. That was the case of Gert Van Rooyen. Yeah, I'm so excited to start delving more into South African true crime. If you made it this far, you guys are superstars. Thank you so much for your support. You don't understand. As a new YouTuber, it really means a lot to me. You guys like my videos, and you subscribe, and you comment, and you follow me on Instagram, all this good stuff. yeah, it just makes me feel good. Like, okay, someone is actually enjoying the content I'm making. So, yeah, thank you guys. I'll see you next time. Until then, please be safe.
I want to, I can pray.